The sound of boots slamming against the pavement echoed through the barracks as Private First Class Sam Johnson wiped the sweat from his brow. He just finished the first of many grueling drills, and it felt like his body was already on the verge of collapse. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the way they looked at him. Every soldier, every officer, the mocking stares, the hushed chuckles, the way his every misstep seemed to be magnified. Sam was different, and everyone knew it. His family had no military legacy. He was here to escape a small-town life that had never offered him a real chance. And now he was just another rookie in a sea of tough guys. No one had ever thought he belonged. Not in this world. "Private Johnson!" The voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. Sergeant Miller stood at the front of the drill, his arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "You call that a push-up? I've seen better form from a damn cadaver. Get your lazy ass in gear now." Miller's words stung like a whip, the rest of the squad looking on, some with smirks, others shaking their heads in silent disbelief. Sam dropped to the ground, hands shaking, his face burning as the rest of the soldiers watched. His arms screamed in pain, but he pushed through, gritting his teeth. What else could he do? The sweat soaked into his uniform, mixing with the shame that ran deeper than the exhaustion. Every movement felt like it was being judged. Every step he took was under a microscope. His every failure was amplified. But what really made his heart pound in his chest wasn't the harsh words. It was the quiet snickers from the guys around him. The way they exchanged glances as if he wasn't even there, as if he was invisible. He wasn't one of them, and they made sure he knew it. From the corner of his eye, Sam noticed Corporal Ramirez. The older soldier was standing against the wall, arms crossed, eyes steady but not unkind. Sam caught his gaze for a split second before Ramirez quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. It wasn't the first time that had happened. Ramirez, like everyone else, was playing it safe. He wasn't about to stick his neck out for someone like Sam. The drill continued, but Sam's mind was elsewhere. He'd made it through countless other challenges in his life. But this felt different. The pain was familiar, but the pressure of the judgment, the sense that everyone was waiting for him to fail, was suffocating. It wasn't just the physical demands, it was the mental ones. He wasn't the son of a military hero. He wasn't strong or confident like the others. He was just a guy trying to prove he could make it. But some days he felt like giving up. What if they were right? What if he didn't belong here? Later that evening, the mess hall was packed. Sam slid his tray down the line, his stomach growling louder than any of the soldiers around him. He grabbed the basics, scrambled eggs, a piece of dry toast, and some bland, flavorless coffee. As he took a seat, the laughter from a nearby table hit his ears, sharp and mocking. "Look at that," Private Dawson sneered, louder than necessary, his voice carrying across the room. "The new guy can barely hold his tray, and he's already more of a mess than half of us." The table erupted in laughter, some of it genuine, some of it forced. Dawson was one of the biggest guys in the unit, all brawn and no brain. He thrived on pushing people around. Sam lowered his head, pretending not to hear it, but the sting still burned. He wasn't just embarrassed, he was humiliated. Corporal Ramirez was sitting at the table across from Sam, as usual, not involved, not helping. Ramirez had seen it all before. He knew what it felt like to be an outsider. He had walked this path, and now it was Sam's turn. But Ramirez didn't intervene. He didn't want to risk his position. It was safer to stay quiet. Sam sat there, eating slowly, his eyes fixed on his plate. What else could he do? Fight back? It wasn't like he could take on Dawson. He didn't even have the strength. But his silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was survival. One more day. One more drill. One more meal without incident. He would make it. Somehow. The evening passed, and soon the lights went out in the barracks. Sam lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, the hum of distant chatter and snores drifting around him. It had been a long, exhausting day, but the feeling of inadequacy still gnawed at him, creeping into his thoughts, making him question everything. He wasn't like the other soldiers. He wasn't built for this, but he didn't have a choice. He was here because he had nothing left back home. His old life, working at a gas station, dealing with people who had no faith in him, hadn't been enough. This was his shot, and he wasn't about to waste it. As the night grew quieter, he heard someone moving near his bunk. It was Corporal Ramirez slipping into the shadows, heading to the back of the room. There he paused, glancing at Sam before his face hardened into an unreadable mask. Without a word, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving Sam in the silence. That was it. No words of encouragement, no reassurance, just the silent acknowledgement that Sam was on his own. For a moment, Sam closed his eyes and let out a long, slow breath. He was going to prove them all wrong. He didn't know how yet, but he wasn't going to let the ridicule break him. Not here, not in this place. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction. The next morning, the drill sergeants were already shouting orders before the first light broke through the windows. The chaos and noise of morning formation echoed through the barracks. Sam's boots hit the pavement again, harder this time, as he pushed himself through the routine. They hadn't broken him yet, but the question lingered in the back of his mind. Could he make it? Could he survive here, surrounded by soldiers who saw him as weak? As he lined up with the rest of the squad, he noticed something, a small flicker of respect in Ramirez's eyes. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was there, and that was enough to keep Sam moving forward. There was a shift, a change in the air. What happened next? Well, Sam wasn't sure, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to quit. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The rain hit the barracks with a relentless rhythm. It felt like the sky was as tired as Sam, beaten down by endless drills, constant ridicule, and a never-ending list of things to prove. He had been in boot camp for almost 2 months now, and every day had been harder than the last. The guys around him were like machines, fast, strong, sharp. And then there was Sam, struggling just to keep up. The rain soaked through his uniform during morning formations, the heavy boots slipping in the mud, the weight of his own self-doubt pressing harder than the soaked fabric against his skin. Every drop of water seemed to remind him of everything he wasn't, but still he kept pushing through. No matter what, he didn't stop. That's what kept him going, that quiet voice in his head that said, "Just get through today. Tomorrow will be better." It was an exhausting mantra, one that barely held the tears back. His body felt like it was on autopilot. Just move, keep moving. Don't think about the looks. The silence was the worst part, the constant feeling of being an outsider. He wasn't good enough. Not yet. Sam wasn't stupid. He knew everyone saw him as weak. The other recruits, the drill sergeants, even the ones who didn't say it out loud, they all thought it. He didn't have the swagger of Dawson, who always strutted around like he owned the place. He didn't have the body of Vasquez, who could do 50 push-ups without breaking a sweat. Sam was just Sam, and Sam wasn't much. That morning, as usual, he found himself on the edge of the formation, behind the others. The drill sergeant, Sergeant Miller, was barking orders, his voice booming over the rain and the mud. Sam's legs ached from the last set of sprints, but he kept his posture straight, just like they taught him. The drill sergeants liked that, when they could see you were at least trying to keep your dignity. But deep down, Sam knew he wasn't fooling anyone. Not Miller, not the others. "Private Johnson, what the hell is wrong with you?" Miller's voice cracked through the air like a whip, snapping Sam's attention to the front. "You think I don't see you slacking off? You think I don't notice you holding everyone back? You are dragging this whole squad down, Private. You're a liability." The words hit like a gut punch. He could feel the eyes of the other recruits on him, the way their gazes flickered with judgment. It was too much. Sam clenched his fists at his sides, his jaw tightening. He couldn't even look up, not because he was ashamed, but because he was so damn tired of hearing it. But the worst part was Dawson standing right beside him, smirking with that damn cocky grin on his face. Dawson, who never missed an opportunity to remind Sam how much better he was at everything. Dawson, who liked to poke and prod, always with that nasty edge in his voice. "Better pick it up, Johnson," Dawson sneered, low enough for only Sam to hear. "Can't have you messing up again. Wouldn't want you to get yourself kicked out. But you know, maybe they'd be doing us all a favor." He chuckled and Sam's blood boiled, but he kept his eyes straight ahead, refusing to give Dawson the satisfaction of a response. The rest of the squad fell into a low murmur as Miller continued his tirade. Sam could feel the humiliation flooding through him, the heat rising in his chest. But he didn't react. Not this time. He'd learned a long time ago that reacting, showing weakness, only made it worse. It was like adding fuel to a fire that was already out of control. But then, something unexpected happened. Corporal Ramirez, the silent, grizzled veteran who had been with the unit for years, was standing at the back of the formation, leaning against the barracks wall, arms folded. Sam didn't notice him at first, but he felt a subtle shift. Ramirez wasn't like the others. He wasn't involved in the teasing or the mocking. He wasn't part of the pack. But today there was something different in the way he was watching Sam. Not like he was watching to see if Sam would fail, more like he was watching to see if Sam would rise. The drill sergeant's voice sliced through Sam's thoughts. "Private Johnson, I'm giving you a chance. Drop and give me 20. The command was a punch in the gut. 20 push-ups. Sam wasn't sure he could even do 10. His arms had already burned from the morning drills and the rain made the ground slippery. But Miller wasn't going to let up. He never did. "Get moving," Miller barked. Sam dropped to the ground, pushing himself up and down with all the strength he could muster, trying not to think about how weak he felt. He wasn't good enough. Not yet. But maybe if he pushed hard enough, he'd prove to them that he wasn't going to quit. As he struggled through the last few push-ups, his arms shaking with fatigue, something inside him snapped. The humiliation, the pressure, the exhaustion, it all combined into a single powerful thought. "I'm done being weak." He pushed up one last time, his chest heaving, and locked eyes with Ramirez. There was something in the older soldier's gaze, something that wasn't pity or mockery, but something else. A quiet acknowledgement. Ramirez nodded once, ever so slightly. Sam didn't understand it, not at first, but that small gesture, the briefest of moments, was enough to ignite something inside him. Maybe he wasn't as invisible as he thought. Maybe he had more fight in him than he realized. The next drill was even worse than the last. They were tasked with a long run, miles of muddy terrain, drenched in rain and soaked to the bone. Dawson was at the front of the pack, as usual, leading the charge with his effortless speed. Sam's lungs burned. His legs felt like they were made of lead. But he kept going, step after painful step. As they neared the halfway point, something happened. Sam's legs were about to give out when he heard a shout behind him. "Private Johnson, move your ass!" It was Dawson once again taunting him from the front. Sam felt his heart race. The anger rose up in his chest, choking him. But this time, instead of collapsing, instead of giving in, he pushed harder. He dug deeper than he ever had before. The pain was unbearable, but he didn't stop. He wasn't going to let Dawson win this time. The final stretch was a blur of pain, but when Sam crossed the line, he did it faster than he thought possible. He wasn't first, but he wasn't last either. And that felt like a small victory. As he stood there gasping for air, Dawson turned and shot him a look. But this time, it was different. Dawson didn't say anything. He just looked at Sam, and for the first time there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. Maybe it was respect, or maybe just confusion. But Sam didn't care. He had done it. He had proven something to himself, and that was enough. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The day of the critical drill arrived, and Sam could feel the weight of it pressing down on him like a storm cloud. The entire squad had been preparing for this for weeks. Field Exercise 52, the big one. It was the kind of test that separated the strong from the weak, the ones who could handle the pressure from those who buckled under it. No one talked about it, but everyone knew. Failing Field Exercise 52 wasn't just about missing the mark. It was about everything. Their future in the unit, their pride, their reputation. For Sam, this was more than just a test. It was his shot at proving he belonged here, at showing the others, especially Dawson, that he could stand up and be counted. The morning started with a cold, biting wind cutting through the training grounds. Everyone was already lined up, their faces grim, eyes narrowed in anticipation. Sergeant Miller was at the front, his presence as solid and immovable as ever, like a rock waiting to crush anyone who dared to falter. The drill was simple in theory: navigate through an obstacle course under fire, retrieve critical intel from an enemy base, and extract under enemy pursuit. But in practice, it was anything but simple. Sam stood with his squad, his heart racing. His hands felt clammy as he adjusted his pack and checked his rifle one more time. Everyone around him looked prepared. They had the confidence that came from experience, the swagger that made them look like they were born for this. Dawson was already cracking jokes, talking about how he'd finished the course in record time. He always did this, making sure everyone knew he was the best, the one to beat. Sam tried to block him out, focus on his own breathing, but it was impossible. Dawson's mocking words were like knives digging into his confidence. "Hope you can keep up, Johnson," Dawson said with a grin, not even bothering to look at Sam as he pulled on his gloves. Sam didn't respond. He just gritted his teeth and kept moving, even as his stomach twisted with anxiety. Corporal Ramirez, the only one who had shown Sam any real support, gave him a quick nod as they lined up. Ramirez didn't need to say anything. His eyes said it all. He'd seen Sam struggle, but he'd also seen him grow. Today would be the real test. "All right, enough chatter," Miller barked. "You know the drill. Get to the start line. No one gets to quit. You fail, you're out. Move out." The course was brutal. It started with a series of mud pits and uneven terrain that had to be navigated under the constant sound of simulated gunfire. As soon as the first round of shots rang out, Sam's heart skipped a beat. His body went into autopilot. He'd been through this in training, sure, but this was different. This was the real deal, the test that everyone had been building up to. Sam pushed forward, his boots slipping in the wet mud as he navigated the first obstacle. His legs burned. His breathing was erratic, but he refused to slow down. Every step felt like it could be his last. He could hear the others around him moving faster, but he couldn't keep up. They were all better. He wasn't even close. "Come on, Johnson!" Dawson's voice rang out from behind, mocking, the same as always. "Are you even trying? You're holding us back." Sam's breath hitched, but he didn't respond. He couldn't afford to. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. He stumbled over a fallen log, catching himself just before hitting the ground. His hands were covered in mud, his face streaked with it. He felt like he was drowning, like the weight of everything was pressing in on him. This was his breaking point, but it wasn't. Not yet. He forced himself to his feet, eyes locked on the next obstacle, a wall that was nearly 10 feet high. Sam's heart pounded in his chest. The wall looked impossible. The others were already scaling it with ease, but Sam's legs were on fire. He glanced over at Dawson, who was halfway up and shouting something taunting. For a split second, doubt crept in. But then something inside Sam snapped. This wasn't about Dawson. It wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving himself right. He wasn't going to quit. With a deep breath, Sam sprinted towards the wall. His hands grabbed the edge, his muscles screaming in protest, but he didn't stop. He heaved himself up, his boots kicking against the wall for leverage. It wasn't pretty, but he made it. Just barely. When he reached the top, his hands were raw, his breath shallow. He looked down, seeing Dawson still struggling at the base of the wall. For a moment, a small spark of satisfaction flickered in Sam's chest. He wasn't the first to reach the top, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't last either. The next few obstacles blurred together. Ropes to climb, tunnels to crawl through, water crossings. But Sam kept pushing forward. His body screamed, but his mind was focused. He was moving faster now, finding a rhythm he hadn't known he had. By the time he reached the final stretch, he was exhausted. Every muscle in his body felt like it was on fire. But he wasn't about to give up now. As he approached the simulated enemy base, the final part of the course, Sam could see Dawson up ahead, already positioning himself behind cover, preparing for the final push. He wasn't sure what happened next, but all of a sudden, Private Vasquez, one of the guys who'd mocked him before, was there, right next to him. He looked winded, sweat dripping from his brow, but his eyes were wide with panic. "Johnson, help!" Vasquez yelled, his voice raw. "I've got a broken leg. I can't move." Sam's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't leave him. Not like this. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees beside Vasquez, pulling his teammate into a fireman's carry. His legs screamed in protest, but he kept moving. The simulated gunfire hit the ground around them, the sound of the bullets snapping in the air. But Sam didn't care. He had a job to do. He wasn't going to let Vasquez be left behind. Not today. "Get down, Johnson," Miller shouted, but Sam didn't stop. He wasn't listening to Miller anymore. He wasn't listening to anyone. He was focused on getting Vasquez to safety. Somehow, Sam made it to the finish line, carrying Vasquez the entire way. He didn't stop, not until they were out of the firing zone, until they were safe. The squad was silent as Sam dropped to his knees, Vasquez still clinging to him. Sam's chest heaved, sweat and mud covering him, his body trembling with exhaustion. Dawson was still standing there, mouth hanging open in disbelief. He hadn't even made it halfway through the final stretch before Sam passed him. Sam didn't care about that anymore. "Private Johnson," Miller's voice came from behind him, low and serious. "I'll be damned." Sam didn't know what to say. He was too exhausted to respond. Then something shifted. Ramirez, who had been quiet throughout the entire drill, stepped forward. He gave Sam a hard clap on the back. "You did good, kid. Damn good." And in that moment, Sam realized something. He wasn't weak. He wasn't a liability. He was a soldier. And that was all that mattered. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The week after Field Exercise 52, the barracks felt like a completely different place. The tension that had once filled the air like a suffocating fog was now quieter. Sam wasn't sure if it was because he had finally proven something to the others, or if everyone was just waiting for the next big test to see if he could hold up. It didn't matter. What mattered now was how different everything felt. For the first time, he was no longer the weak link. The others, especially Dawson, were giving him a bit more space. They still didn't talk to him much, but the sneers had stopped. But there was something in the air, a feeling that, despite all his effort, things weren't as settled as they seemed. Sam couldn't shake the nagging sense that there was something waiting to happen, something big, and maybe even worse than the humiliation he'd faced before. It came on a Tuesday morning, right after the morning PT session. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and stale coffee as Sam wiped his face with his sleeve, leaning against the wall to catch his breath. The others were in their usual groups, talking about the next drill or cracking jokes, but Sam wasn't in the mood. Not today. Then he heard it, the unmistakable sound of Sergeant Miller's boots approaching. He didn't look up at first. He knew what was coming. Everyone was being called to the main room for a debrief on the last exercise, and Sam was already bracing himself for the usual drill of insults and questions about his performance. But when Miller's voice cut through the crowd, Sam froze. "Private Johnson, in my office now." The words hung in the air, and for a split second, the entire barracks went quiet. Sam's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't a usual debrief. This was personal. No one said anything as Sam pushed himself off the wall and started walking toward the office. Every step felt heavier than the last. He could feel the eyes on him, the curiosity, the judgment. They knew something was coming. He wasn't sure if it was good or bad, but he had a gut feeling it wasn't good. The door to Miller's office slammed shut behind him. "Sit down, Johnson." Miller's voice was colder than usual. Sam obeyed without thinking, taking the chair across from the desk. He kept his hands on his knees, trying not to let his nerves show. Miller's eyes were sharp as he looked over at Sam. There was a pause, longer than Sam expected. Then Miller leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "You think you've earned some respect, don't you?" Miller's voice was low, his words slow, like he was savoring them. "You think you're not the screw-up anymore, huh?" Sam's chest tightened. He wasn't sure where this was going, but his instincts told him it wasn't going to be good. He opened his mouth to speak, but Miller cut him off. "You're still a liability." Miller stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You're still holding this squad back. You proved something last week, sure, but don't think I'm going to let it slide." The words hit Sam harder than any drill sergeant's insult ever had. He felt his stomach drop. This was supposed to be his redemption. He had carried Vasquez to safety. He had passed the test. He had earned respect. But now Miller was telling him it wasn't enough. Not even close. You've been holding the others back, and it stops today, Johnson. Miller's voice was rising now, and Sam felt the anger and frustration burning through the room. We don't have time for weak soldiers who can't cut it. You're not a hero. You're just a liability, and I've had enough of this shit. Sam's hands balled into fists. Every word that came out of Miller's mouth felt like it was cutting deeper than the last. He had fought for this. He had bled for this. And now Miller was trying to take it all away. What are you going to do about it? Miller asked, his voice dripping with disdain. You want to prove yourself? Show me. I've had enough of this nonsense. For a moment, Sam thought he might lose it. Everything inside him screamed to fight back, to shout, to say everything that had been building up over the past weeks. But he didn't. He stayed silent. He kept his head down, his jaw clenched tight. Then just when Sam thought he couldn't take any more of Miller's tirade, the door slammed open. Sergeant Miller! A voice rang out, sharp and clear. Sam looked up, startled. Corporal Ramirez stood in the doorway, his expression hard. The air in the room shifted instantly. Ramirez was no longer the quiet soldier in the corner, watching everything unfold. He had stepped forward. You're done, Sergeant. Ramirez's words were calm, but they hit harder than any drill sergeant's command. Miller blinked, clearly thrown off. He was about to say something, but Ramirez cut him off. You think Johnson's the problem? The squad's not moving forward because you can't get your head out of your ass. Ramirez's eyes didn't leave Miller's, and for the first time, Sam saw the man who had quietly supported him step into the light. Ramirez wasn't just standing up for Sam. He was standing up for what was right. Sam couldn't believe it. Ramirez, the man who'd said nothing during all those long days, the one who kept to himself, he was calling Miller out. It was like a switch had been flipped. It was the first time anyone had actually done something for Sam, not just looked on with pity or indifference. You're out of line, Miller. Ramirez's voice was steady, unwavering. This squad isn't getting better because of your treatment. It's getting worse. You're pushing them down. For a moment, the room was dead silent. Sam could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He hadn't expected this. Not from Ramirez. Not like this. Miller stood frozen for a second. Then his face turned red with rage. You can't do this, Ramirez. His voice was shaking with fury. I outrank you. You have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe that's the problem, Sergeant. Ramirez took a step forward, his posture still calm. You've forgotten what it's like to be a soldier, to earn respect the hard way. I've seen this squad come together in ways you wouldn't understand. Maybe it's time for you to step aside. The silence in the room felt suffocating. Miller glared at Ramirez for a moment, and then, without a word, he turned and stormed out of the office. Sam sat there, still processing everything that had just happened. The rush of emotions, the relief, the shock, the gratitude was overwhelming. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was in the wrong. Ramirez had just flipped the entire power dynamic on its head. He wasn't just another soldier. He was a force to be reckoned with. When the door finally clicked shut, Ramirez turned to Sam. You're not alone, Johnson. His voice softened, but his eyes were still firm. You've earned your place here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Sam didn't know what to say. For the first time, his chest swelled with pride. Maybe it had taken this long to get here, but he wasn't done yet. He had a squad behind him, and that meant something. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The morning after Ramirez's confrontation with Sergeant Miller, everything seemed different. Sam wasn't sure if it was the quiet tension that still hung in the air or the newfound respect he felt from the other soldiers. But he could feel it. Something had shifted. The power dynamics had changed. The squad had been through hell, but they had come out the other side, a little stronger, a little more united. As the morning formation began, Sam stood a little straighter. The rain had let up, leaving the ground slick and muddy, but the sun was peeking through the clouds. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so clear-headed. Everything felt lighter. There was a weight lifting off his shoulders, one he hadn't realized had been there until now. For the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider. He didn't feel like he had to prove anything to anyone. He was just a soldier, part of the squad, and that was enough. Sergeant Miller was noticeably absent that morning. Word had gotten around fast about what had happened. Sam had no idea what would come next. There was still a part of him, deep down, that expected Miller to return, angry and ready to make Sam pay for what happened. But for now there was only silence, and that silence felt good. Ramirez had stayed quiet in the days that followed too. He'd never been one for speeches or grand gestures, but Sam knew the man had his back. He always had in his own quiet way. In the mess hall that morning, Ramirez gave him a simple nod as they passed by each other. It wasn't much, but it was everything Sam needed. At the end of the week, when the entire squad was lined up for inspection, Captain Ramirez, no relation to Corporal Ramirez, walked in with an unusual solemnity. Sam had always known the captain as a no-nonsense leader, the kind of man who expected excellence and nothing less. But today, there was something different in his eyes, something heavy that wasn't there before. "Listen up." The captain's voice carried across the room, and the chatter quieted immediately. "I want to acknowledge something today." The captain paused, letting the words settle. Sam's heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling he knew where this was going. "Private Johnson." The captain's eyes locked onto Sam's, and for a moment, Sam thought his heart might stop. He didn't know what to expect, but it sure as hell wasn't this. "You've proven yourself in a way I didn't think possible." The captain's voice was steady, but Sam could hear the pride in it. "You've earned the respect of your squad and your peers, and that's not something I say lightly." Sam stood there motionless, unable to believe what he was hearing. For so long, he'd been told he wasn't good enough. For so long, he had felt invisible. But now in front of the entire squad, in front of Ramirez, he was being recognized. And it hit him all at once. The validation he had worked for, the respect he had earned, the feeling of finally being part of something that mattered. "From this point forward, you'll be taking on more responsibility with your squad. You've earned it." The captain's words rang out loud and clear, and Sam's heart swelled with pride. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It wasn't just about getting by. He was here. He was part of this team. As the rest of the squad clapped and congratulated him, Sam felt something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. He wasn't the weak link anymore. He wasn't the guy who could barely keep up. He was a soldier. He was one of them. Later that night, Sam found himself sitting on his bunk, thinking about everything that had led him to this point. He thought about the long hours of drills, the humiliation, the doubts, and the moments where he felt like quitting. But then he remembered the faces of his squad, Dawson, Vasquez, Ramirez, and how, despite everything, he had pushed through. Sam wasn't the same person who had arrived at boot camp months ago. He was stronger now, not just in body, but in spirit, and it was all because he had kept going, even when it seemed impossible. Outside the barracks, the flag fluttered in the wind, a symbol of everything Sam had worked for. He wasn't done, not by a long shot, but for the first time, he felt ready. He was no longer just a guy in the background, struggling to fit in. He was a part of something bigger, something worth fighting for. The next morning, as Sam stood at attention with the squad, a feeling of calm washed over him. The uncertainty was gone. The fight was still ahead, but he wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever came next, he was ready. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the barracks, Sam stood beneath the American flag, the wind whispering softly through the fabric. His eyes were steady, focused on the stars and stripes fluttering above. The men and women of his squad stood at a distance watching him, their gazes filled with something he hadn't seen before. Respect. They didn't need to say anything. The quiet salutes, the subtle nods spoke volumes. Sam had earned his place, not with words, but with actions. In that moment, Sam realized something important. He wasn't just fighting to be seen anymore. He was fighting for something deeper, honor, dignity, and the belief that he belonged. What had started as a battle for respect had transformed into a journey of understanding, of proving to himself and others that no one was ever truly invisible. The lesson, if you'll take it to heart, is simple. We all face moments of injustice. Times when we're looked down upon, judged before we're even given a chance. But what matters isn't the prejudice we face. It's how we respond. It's in the silent strength we carry, the resilience that grows from hardship, and the dignity we hold even when the world tries to strip it away. In the end, it's not about being the loudest or the strongest. It's about standing tall, no matter how heavy the weight. Remember, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. As soldiers, as people, we are bound together by a common bond, brotherhood. You'll find strength in that and in your own resilience. You reap what you sow, so sow honor, respect, and integrity in everything you do. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments, like the video to show your support, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Together we grow stronger, one story at a time. Stay strong, stay resilient, and keep fighting the good fight.